Ton haben wir.
Ich wollte heute mal nichts sagen.
Sitz. Na, das ist die Voice-over-IP. Und gestern haben wir noch gesagt, alles abschalten, was irgendwie Messages produzieren kann, und den habe ich natürlich vergessen.
exactly. So the point is that it's a conversation starter. So the question on the table is how do we proceed in spite of that?
Okay, but do you see the last picture I pasted there? It's Joshua's. Have you seen the War Games? You know that movie? You're too young, probably. 1983.
Show me where
At the very end, it should be. No, not in here. Well, there, Joshua concludes.
Yeah.
You know, so the story is that computers take over the control of nuclear weapons. And, of course,
No, they don't take over.
What?
Humanity gives them control.
Yeah.
Because humanity believes that,
Because the mad doctrine didn't work because you had weak, so-called weak characters not pressing buttons.
Right.
So they replace everything with computers that would automatically launch the weapons. And then this whole thing gets out of control, and there's the danger of it launching a global war.
semantic result formats. Semantic result formats. Sorry for the acronym. Was die Semantic Result Formats hast du noch nicht? Result Formats. Echt? Ja, das sind die ganzen Visualisierungen. Okay.
Visualisierung habe ich bisher sehr schnöde in den 3 Bibliotheken benutzt.
Also.
Aber müssen wir gucken. Es ist aber auch, passt ihr euch damit? Habt ihr sowas im Hintergrund? Oder ist das nur...
Ja, das sind Extensions, die kannst du benutzen.
Ja. Mich eher mal interessieren, die Knowledge Graph.
Ja, das ist eine andere Geschichte.
Es wird immer schwieriger, ja.
Morning, everyone. I think we are going to get started to keep on time. So we are very pleased to welcome this morning Alexander Gezin at the stage, and he will open the session that will talk about different ways of visualizing content in wikis, and starting with semantic data. Alexander.
Thanks, Lusanna. Yeah, welcome, day 3. Yesterday conference dinner, everyone looks almost good. All right, let's have a look at how to visualize semantic data using some graphs. Someone just asked me what SRF means. It's semantic result formats. So I'm talking about 2 extensions. The first extension is the knowledge graph, and the second is the graph format of semantic result formats. So, yeah, most of you know me from my own company, Gezin IT. I'm around for 15 years working with Semantic MediaWiki, but I'm also working since a couple of years for TIB, and at the moment in the lab-linked science knowledge. And in this context, specifically for a project, it's called SFB 1153, and it deals with research data management for tailored forming. And the goal is to establish a research data knowledge management system for that project. And I'm involved there. And as you can see, there is also Semantic MediaWiki in it. And that's the reason why I am, as an SMW and DevOps expert in that team. Unfortunately, the graphics only available in German. So this is the typical setup. So we have domain-specific applications that are run by the researchers. And you have 2 main components. One is a CCAN, and CCAN is a data store to upload research data and add some metadata to it. And we have Semantic MediaWiki involved, and Semantic MediaWiki takes care of the metadata. So it's not the actual research data, it's metadata about the research data. And both work together, and there's an underlying Sparkle store also involved. But today I want to focus on the right-hand side on the Semantic MediaWiki part, and especially on graph visualizations. And as you can see, that's a live screen, a screenshot from the system as it looks like at the moment. And as you can see, yeah, it's not really readable. You can discuss about clustering and stuff, but that's not the topic at the moment. It's just to have a graph visualization at all. And that screenshot uses the knowledge graph extension, for example. But let's have a look later. So why do graphs matter at all for Semantic MediaWiki? Well, they reveal relationships, not just the records. So the SMW is all about the connections. We have the triples, we have everything in the store. Most of you are more the technical guys looking at the SMW browse, looking at the triples, but a regular user finds it hard to have this data-driven approach. They want to see something visual beside the regular tables view. And graphs are just nice because it's perfect for the data structure, of course. Yeah, and they help to see the model behind the data, so you can either showcase the data itself or use it to explain the ontology that's implemented in the wiki. Yeah, and they bridge the human and machine view, and they invite for exploration, especially the knowledge graph. It's something you can play around interactively with, and it's, for some, it's really just fun to click around and see what happens. So, these are two extensions. They exist for a while, so that's nothing I have created. For example, the knowledge graph is derived from another interactive graph extension. It has been taken over by Bernard's team and the KMA. They did the first version of this, and I did some extensions recently with some features that were missing, to my opinion. So that's the knowledge graph extension. You can find it on the regular places. And on the other hand, we have the semantic result format, the graph format. That's also super old. And knowledge graph is AP plus JavaScript, so it's a client-side approach in the browser, versus the graph format is PHP plus the graph with package. And some of you might know that this has been some pain in the past, because the GraphViz is something that runs on the server outside of the MediaWiki ecosystem, and there has been some extensions specifically to bring GraphViz into MediaWiki. And the current approach is to use the external data extension that has been initialized by Jaron and his team, and this can make use of an external program call, and this brings back the GraphViz functionality. So, client-side, server-side, both use parser functions. So for the knowledge graph, you can have a parser function where you define the initial state of the graph to be shown. And the result formats, as you know, it's a part of the ask parser function where you say, okay, I want to have the output rendered as a graph. So knowledge graph is interactive. You can play with it. I will show you in a minute. Versus the graph format is somehow static. It's dynamic in a way that it is based on the results of an ask query, so it changes when the data changes, but you cannot play around with it or add a node or remove a node. That's possible with the knowledge graph extension. Knowledge graph is based on JavaScript framework. It's the Wiz Network.js. Result format is based on the GraphViz extension. Knowledge graph has a bonus. It brings a designer, so you can, instead of writing the parser function yourself, you can play with it and then copy and paste the result into the clipboard and reuse that on another page. All right. Let's have a look how this looks like. Okay, so this is the knowledge graph extension, and I used a simple example here. It's a team structure, so you can have a team and sub-teams. So in this case, for example, the solar energy team is part of the team solar hydro. You see one effect that I discovered, that's something we need to look into, why solar hydro is in a different color. It's because it has incoming and outgoing edges. That's the reason why it's internally discovered as a separate node, but technically it should be a team, so it should have the same blue color as the other teams. But anyway, that's something to fix. So now you can play with it in that way that is really interactive. You can right-click on the nodes, and you get a context menu. And in that context menu, you see the properties that are available on that page that is assigned to that node. You can also directly link to that node. So when I click here, it will open the team in the browser. Here is the team page and so on. You can right-click and say, okay, I want to see, for example, the team code. So this is the ID of the team, or you can add some people that are casted. And what you see immediately, it starts growing and growing. And I know that there are some people in the audience that would now mention, oh, how about clustering or whatever? So that's something that might come in future, or feel free to work on that. But yeah, it grows and grows. What's behind the scenes? What creates that? That's the parser function I mentioned earlier. So you have a list of nodes you can start with. This can be something static, so instead of me using an ask query here to get it filled, you can directly mention a page, or you can use full page name or whatever to get the initial nodes as a list. But I use ask here to get the nodes I want to see here. So it's completely the other way around, like the graph format where you have an ask query with a result format, it's the other way around. Yeah, then you have the initial properties you want to use to create the edges. That's part of team in my case. You have some width and height stuff. And you have a specific configuration or options page in the MediaWiki namespace, knowledge graph options, where you can define tons of parameters, font sizes, edge colors, whatsoever. So this is the gateway to the Wiz network configuration. So you can modify this directly in the wiki without the need of messing around with local settings. All right, let's go back. There are some other smaller features like, I didn't turn it on. Yeah, I already showed you right click and so on. So that's the knowledge graph. It's interactive. With the side effect, can get really big and difficult to read. So because of that, there's another option you can use. Looking at the semantic result formats, it's basically the same set of data, but it looks completely different. It looks more structured, more presenting the hierarchy of the teams. So to my opinion, this is visually clearer than the other approach. And with one effect I wanted to show, because I don't think many of you did use this before. Some time ago, someone else implemented the fields option, where you can say, okay, I wanted to have the fields rendered in the node instead of having separate nodes per property. This is here. The graph fields, yes. If I turn this off, they're gone at all. Let's see. Yeah, now you see this really cluttered thing, and now it becomes completely, to my opinion, useless, because you don't see anything anymore. You're losing the relations, and it's much stronger if you say, okay, put in the graph fields plus even those fields that are pages, because before a recent change I did, each property type page got its own node. And with graph field pages, yes, you say only the first property of type a page defines the edges. Everything else goes into the fields labels. And with that approach, you can create something like this team overview or organizational charts, where you want to focus on exactly one of the edges and not each type page getting its own nodes. So what has been changed recently? So what I built into the knowledge graph extension was support for inverse properties. That's something we required for the SFB project. Because of the ontology design, unfortunately, we have to use inverse properties, and that was not possible before, so I added this one. Then I moved the API that was implemented, so this was a custom API that comes with the knowledge graph extension. I replaced this by an SMW API, slightly enhancing the SMW API to also allow the inverse properties. This is available since SMW 5.1.0, so for 139 based wikis plus forthcoming wikis in the current branch. I added the context menu stuff we've seen and some visualization things like you have now a color palette you can define in local settings. So the colors are static, so there's a hash created. Before that, it was somehow random, so every time you open the graph, it looks different colors, and now it's hashed, so it remains with the same set of colors looking always the same, and you can add the custom palette to the local settings. And for the result formats, the recent changes, this was the thing I just mentioned with the graph field pages. That's important if you just want to have one page property used to create the edges. That's basically it. Feel free to play around with it. It's available on the regular places. Thanks a lot.
Excellent. Since we started 1 or 2 minutes late, so I think it's fair to have 1 or 2 minutes for questions, if there are any.
Yeah, good morning. You showed the SRF output on the screen. Is it possible to manipulate this data before it's rendered on the screen?
I mean, the data comes from the result of the ask query.
Yeah.
So whatever is returned by the ask query is rendered. So when you want to change something, you have to change the data. So you have to change your property values or whatever. This is just another form of representation. So if you have this and use the same ask query, this will get the table. Then you see exactly your data set. So this is just a regular output of SMW. So it's always the data that is annotated on your pages.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Hi. So semantic result formats has been around quite a long time, right? It's from like at least 2007 or 8. I'm curious if you have thoughts on what the correct way to compose multiple semantic MediaWiki related extensions is, and what your thought process is on what features should go in core semantic MediaWiki as opposed to into extensions that are further changing what is available in SMW, but not changing the SMW core on its own.
I mean, the result formats is around since the very beginning of core to keep it separated. So SMW already is quite heavy to maintain, and the set of extensions that are used for the visualization, it's also very heavy. So having both in one repo would probably cause more issues than it solves. And also there are different life cycles. So SMW is somehow slower in releases, whereas the SRF allows you to implement something completely new without waiting for the next Semantic MediaWiki release. That's an important topic to have this separated. But it's somehow special, but it's in the SMW ecosystem. It uses the same way of CI tests on GitHub and so on. So, but we can also talk, if you like, in the break.
Actually, mostly curious if you have anything that you would further prefer to move into separate extensions, or if that's...
I personally don't have any issues with the amount of extensions that are around, as long as we don't have 5 or 6 extensions more or less doing the same, and none of them is really maintained. So that's the reason why I personally like working on GitHub. So I'm less involved in the Garrett Fabricator ecosystem because for us it's not a convenient way of working, but that's a different story. But of course, we should try to get a subset of good working extensions. And that was exactly the reason why I did this presentation. So if you deal with graphs, consider using the two of them instead of accidentally taking an old cow or so.
I think we're really out of time, so if it's okay with everyone,
Sure.
more questions over the coffee break, because we also need to set up the next speaker.
All right.
Okay, then setting up the next speaker. You are. Is it? Okay, sure.
It's duplicating. Okay, 1 second. I gotta make it extend. Okay, cool. Then I think I put this over here. Cool. Fantastic. Why is that full screen? Yeah. Oh, did I just click this? No, where's my speaker notes? Yeah, okay. We may just be a little bit jankier, but that's okay. Cool, fantastic. I want to show another tab later anyway, so we'll do it like this. Okay. Cool, I'm short. Fantastic. So, hello everyone. I am not going to say good morning because most people are watching the VOD of this because no one wanted to wake up this early. I appreciate every single person in this room right now for being awake because I had to be awake. Today I'm going to be talking about wiki.gg's improved main page framework. I'm using the word framework because this is not an extension. It's some Lua wiki text, JavaScript, a little bit of JavaScript. It's not reliant on JavaScript to load stuff. That's utility stuff, I promise, and a bunch of CSS. And this is how we design main pages on wiki.gg. If you're not familiar with wiki.gg, we are a wiki farm, wiki platform. We have about 1,500 wikis. I've been saying for a while that we have about 1,500 wikis, so we probably now have about 1,600 wikis, somewhere around there, which means that when we're spinning up a wiki, we are not going in and then saying, okay, you are our single most important wiki. For the next 2 months, we're going to be dedicated just to helping you spin up MediaWiki. We have all of these resources for you. If you have literally any question, we're going to do a bespoke thing for every single wiki. That's not feasible for us because our goal is to host a lot of wikis. And that means that we need to create tooling where our users can be mostly self-sufficient when they're setting up their wiki. So we will give them a wiki and they will see their new wiki, and we would like if their new wiki looks a little bit better than the default MediaWiki install page. A lot of these people do not have technical background. A lot of them have never used MediaWiki before. A lot of them don't know that MediaWiki is a word. So some examples of what these things look like. These are not the default that you would see, but these are some styled versions of the main page. So these are some things that you can do with our framework if you want to. So this is an example of a wiki, Needy Streamer Overlord wiki. They did some customizations. You can see how the main page kind of looks like a main page. There's boxes, there's things that are aligned, there's different widths. This is in dark theme. One requirement for our main page is that it has to be easy to style in both light mode and dark mode at the same time. That's not necessarily through the main page mechanism. We have a whole loadout of color variables that kind of work in partnership with codex variables to make light and dark theme very easy to style. So this is the same wiki, and it's in light mode, and then I have the screenshot of the tablet mode and the screenshot of the mobile, so you can kind of see how there's a responsive design here. And we wanted it to be very easy for users to have a responsive design on their main page. This is another example. Here's a couple other examples. I wrote in our Discord and said, hey, if you have a cool example using this, please send it to me so I can put in my slides. So thank you very much to all of my users who sent me their examples. And I'm sorry to a couple wikis who sent them after my slides were done, and I did not go back and edit my slides more. So I want to talk maybe a little bit less about how this works and what it does, and more about how we designed it and what factors went into designing it. And then if you think that it sounds cool, I do have links to all of the useful pages where you can install it on your own wiki if you want to. So there's a couple of general requirements that these are not requirements for designing a main page framework per se. These are requirements for designing any feature that we are hoping all of the so no feature will be used by all of the wikis on our platform, but let's say we're hoping about 90% of the wikis on our platform are going to use a new feature. So the first thing, and I would say probably the single most important thing, is that it has to look decent by default. So if you get this feature and you see the page, say if it's the info box and you see in it, you see this copyable code to create a new info box template and nothing else. Or in this case, you see your brand new wiki and you see the default main page and nothing else. Or you want to make a nav box and you see a default empty nav box and nothing else. That has to look decent already, even though you haven't done anything. And the reason for this is that a lot of our users are super non-technical, and if they see something that doesn't work, they're like, so if I see something that doesn't work, I'm like, oh, it's probably not configured yet. If they see something that doesn't work, they're like, oh my god, this doesn't work, like everything just broke. Why did these stupid people at wiki.gg tell me to install this thing that's not even working yet? And we get a lot of questions, and it's not even anger, it's also a lot of the time it is anxiety. It is, oh my god, this is supposed to be working, why isn't it working, what did I do wrong? And the number one thing I want to avoid is people thinking, what did I do wrong? So it has to look decent by default so that you kind of have just this intuition that, oh yes, this thing was put on my wiki and I think that's a real thing. I believe that this is a thing I can use. The second requirement is that it has to be really easy to customize a little bit, and that a bit in this line is doing a lot of work. I really mean it has to be extraordinarily easy to change the word default to default as your very first edit, or whatever you want to do, where you're just manipulating one string to prove that the edit process works. So when we're looking at these examples, these are highly customized main pages. They have a bunch of content. There's tons of pages already created on the wiki that can be linked to. There's files that are uploaded. There's a border image in the CSS, right? That's not the proof that it's possible to edit. That's the, oh, this wiki has actually existed for a month now, and there's actually content, and I can make something good, right? In the first 15 minutes of a wiki existing, it's not really possible to make a helpful, complete main page. So what we want people to be able to do, or in the first 15 minutes of any tool being used, it's not going to be amazing. It's going to be, I know it works, maybe. So we want people to be able to get to that, I know it works, maybe, very, very, very easily. And then the last point is that it has to be easier to customize this significantly than to abandon the framework completely and use something else. And this one is also very important because, so on wiki.gg, probably our most well-known wiki is the Terraria wiki. Terraria is a very, very old wiki. It has a huge, huge amount of functionality, and a lot of that functionality is implemented in very legacy ways. And a new wiki will come and they will say, okay, I have made my first video game ever. I want to make a wiki for my video game. I am so excited about this. I have no idea what I'm doing. Let me copy from Terraria. And we say, probably not what you want to do actually, but it would be kind of great if that were a thing that you could reasonably do. So our goal when we're making frameworks like this is that wikis which now are new and in 5 years will be the super well-known, super complicated wiki that has all of the functionality, we want those wikis to be copyable from and still be using the same framework that other wikis are using so that you have consistency among examples, so that it's easy for us to help you, because when you say, oh my God, these 1,000 lines of code aren't working, it's the same 1,000 lines of code that the other wikis are using, so helping you is easier for us. We really want a lot of wikis doing very similar things fundamentally that they then customize in very extensive ways so that the wikis look different from each other, feel different from each other, are different from each other, but work similarly to each other. And an absolute requirement for that is that our frameworks are very, very, very extensible so that people copying the thing they know the most, that they know the best, is a possible thing for them to do. And I did say the word main page while talking about these points a little bit, but I didn't have to, right? These are very general points that anytime you're trying to roll out software that you want mass adoption for, these things all have to apply. And that's not even in just MediaWiki, right? Anytime you're making a tool that you want everyone to be using, in my opinion, these are the 3 things that you need to keep in mind. And if you do that, you'll probably make something that's pretty cool. In this case, we are doing main pages, though, so we have a couple very specific requirements about a main page. And some of these are very main page specific, some of these are slightly less main page specific. We don't want a wall of text. We don't want it to be that when you open the main page and then you press edit, and most people are using edit with source, some people are using visual editor, it has to work with both. But either way, we don't want an enormous amount of content on the main page itself. I really do mean on the main page itself, right? Because we're going to be transcluding from other pages, so most of the content should be transcluded so that you don't have a huge wall of text, so that people don't have to scroll. If you ask me, how do I edit this page? And I say, okay, well, go into the editor and then find the place where it says MP link and change that. Well, okay, if there's 10 lines of code total on the page and half of them say MP link, it's probably pretty easy to do. If there's 500 lines of code on the page and 5 of them say MP link, you're gonna be like, oh, now I have to use like Control F, and Control F isn't working because like Wiki Editor is taking over Control F and it's not what I'm used to. And then you also get into language barriers, and it's much more difficult to do a simple thing if that simple thing is buried in a huge wall of text in the source, as opposed to if there is very little code in that one source page. So we wanted to make very sure that there is no gigantic wall of text. This is not necessarily main page specific. In general, we don't like having huge walls of text in individual wiki pages. We want the source to be relatively compact. However, that has a conflicting goal, which is that we also want it to be very obvious to know how to edit. And if we're doing all of this indirection with layers of transclusion in order to have a very simple main page, we're going to end up with, okay, well, so there's like 3 lines of code on this page, and none of them is how I edit a link or add a link. Where do I go to edit the link? And so that it was another requirement that we had to work around that in some way. That's what the JavaScript is for. So we're having people edit on subpages. It could be template pages. It could be project pages, wherever you want to edit the content. That has to be very apparent how to get there without using like the edit and then see the templates, like what templates are used on this page. Like that's 5 steps too far. It has to be really obvious. And this means that we are going to be coding our own section edit buttons in some way. A couple other points that I don't have to go into, you can read them on my slides, but we basically wanted to make sure that this was as useful as possible while being modular, while each of the modular pages in itself is useful. Basically so that the amount of things that you're thinking about at any one point in time is always one page, and one page that is not doing multiple things, that doesn't have too much code on it, etc. There's a couple technical requirements because this is a wiki main page that we do need to make sure functions. Earlier on in the examples, I showed you the NSO wiki that has the same content is being displayed at different widths in different dark and light mode, and that has to literally just work out of the box with no configuration necessary. Because if any configuration is necessary, people are just going to do the default. It's not going to work. So to make it responsive like that, it has to use CSS Grid for the sections. And once we're using CSS Grid for the sections, we are using CSS for the sections. And once we're using CSS for the sections, we're making our users edit CSS. This is a scary thing that most users are not going to be able to do. So we had to figure out a way for users to edit the CSS to change the layout without actually going into MediaWiki common.css. Again, that is a gigantic wall of text. We don't want people editing that. we also don't really want people editing that in the middle because then it's harder for us to roll out updates to our default loadout and stuff, but that's additional technical detail. We just don't want people to have to say like, oh my God, I need to know CSS in order to edit a wiki. Like, and then again, the user I'm thinking about is the user who just has a panic attack and doesn't want to make a wiki anymore. And I don't want to have anyone have that experience, right? I want people to say, oh, I can make a wiki and it's not too difficult and it doesn't require coding. So we needed to use CSS Grid in a way that doesn't require people to edit MediaWiki comment.css. That is relatively easy to do by having a template parameter that just does an inline style. In that case, in this particular case, I'm fine with the inline style. So it's not a difficult thing to do, but that it was a very important technical requirement when designing this framework. We wanted to be backed by CSS variables for color. Again, this is something that we kind of get for free on our platform just because we have all of these, we call it default loadout variables that work in conjunction with codex variables, and it makes it very easy to do dark and light themes at the same time. You actually get a dark and light theme by default when you spin up the wiki, which is another example of having to look decent by default. We wanted to implement this in Lua, and when I say Lua, I mean not PHP. We did not want to write an extension for this. We wanted everything to be completely wiki editor, but not sysadmin facing, because all of our users are editors and do not have server access to our wiki farm. If they want to fork our framework, we're okay with that. We would rather they make us a feature request first, and we'll see if it's something that we want to add to the whole framework. But we do want it to be forkable. We want all of the code to be visible. While it's true that a lot of our users are relatively non-technical and we want things to just work out of the box for them with very little customization, we also do want to support people who have been editing wikis for 10 years and they want to spin up this wiki for this video game they just really enjoyed and they know how to do everything. They just want to see the code and fix everything themselves. We don't want to obfuscate what's going on with an extension. We don't want to deal with updating an extension. We actually want it to be possible to fork away from us if a community gets unhappy with us. That's very important because wikis want that safety when they're deciding to host with us in the first place. And adding an extension makes that process more difficult because then that's another piece of software that is running server side that other wikis are going to have to install if they want to fork away. So it had to be Lua. I mean, technically it could have been wiki text, but also no. We did not want any HTML tables. It has to use CSS Grid. We don't want tables. The main page has to be very responsive. Section edit links, as I was talking about on the previous slide, section edit links are very important because you are not going to discover subpages that have content unless you are already seeing the link directly to the subpage. And then we want these links to exist, but we also want them to be toggleable. So we permission lock the edit links to people who are able to edit the main page only, which in almost all cases is sysops only. But we want them to be toggleable so that if people will sometimes go to the main page and we will get this like, oh my God, can everyone see this edit links? So we have like just a very clear button that loads for sysops only that says toggle edit links, and then you can turn it off and you can screenshot your main page and preview it correctly. So again, a minor thing that was a requirement that we had to make sure was available when we created this. Technically, we do not have a permission-locked gadget anymore. We have a gadget that is just locked to edit so that it doesn't load for anonymous users, but the first thing that it does is check if you are able to edit the page, and if not, it doesn't load. The reason that we aren't using the built-in permission lock functionality of gadgets is that an earlier point here, when I said it must be sandboxable and translatable, if we're getting a wiki that wants to translate, they're going to say they want to translate to Korean, they're going to have a /ko temporary page as a subpage of the main page, and whoever is doing the Korean translation probably does not have sysop on the wiki, and we don't want to make having sysop on the wiki a requirement for someone to translate a wiki. We want that to just be something that any user can start translating, assuming they're not vandalizing the wiki as they translate, right? So that should be relatively non-disruptive, not require elevated rights. So we did start out with a permission-locked gadget, and then we ended up changing it specifically for that, being able to sandbox it in your user space, being able to translate it, etc. So what do we make? This is how the main page will look by default if you spin up a new wiki. I have this open. So this is actually our default loadout wiki. This is the wiki that you will get if you spin up a new wiki on wiki.gg. It will look more or less like this. There's a couple parts of this that are going to be changed a bit, right? The welcome to the default loadout wiki in the top, that's site name, right? So that'll say whatever site name is. Subject name is not a real magic word, but in our importing this to the new wiki's script, it is a magic word, and so we replace that with whatever the wiki subject is. And then there's a couple boxes, so we can, in fact, toggle the edit links, and they will show up and go away. And the edit links are relatively verbose. Deliberately, there's always a UX trade-off between making something super verbose and making something look nice, right? So it is unambiguously clear that these are, it is showing up, that these are the links that you have to click to go edit one of the sections. However, they take up a large amount of space. And maybe we could have done just a pencil, but inevitably, if we did a pencil, people would ask. So we have actually not iterated that text at all. It has always said this. And let me, where's my cursor? Whoops. Okay. So this is another screenshot. I didn't realize I was going to be able to do a demo. This gigantic wall of text that is maybe not as intimidating as it looks. It's not syntax highlighted here. It'll normally be syntax highlighted when people open a new wiki. This is how the code of your brand new main page will look when you open it. And there's probably 2/3 of the text here is comments, right? We wanted to have inline documentation. A big thing for us is that if something requires you to read documentation in another location, it is inherently too difficult for the average user to use. And I'm not doing that to knock on users for not reading documentation, right? That's just a bad user experience if you're trying to do something that seems like it should be easy, but requires you to do a bunch of reading externally. And I think there's a very big seems like it should be easy versus is easy, because obviously a lot of things are very complicated and they will require reading documentation. But if a user is trying to use Lua for the first time and we say, okay, go read the Lua documentation, generally a user is not going to think, oh, I want to use Lua. That seems like it should be the easiest thing ever. I can't believe that I have to go read docs. I must just be the stupidest person ever. Oh my God, I'm not going to make a wiki, right? But what about customizing your main page? Is that something that users are going to think to themselves, oh, this should be very easy, like that should just work if I can't figure this out, if I have to go read all this documentation and I don't understand the documentation and English is like my fourth language and I'm using Google Translate to help me understand this and it's not doing a good job of translating all the wiki text. They're gonna blame themselves for not understanding it when really it's our fault for making something that is too complicated. So basically all of the documentation is right there in line and you see it, and we have little eyes emojis, and people actually read this. It's pretty great. So if you want to edit it, I have a little example here. I can see, I want to do a live demo, but also that's like the production new default wiki, and if I edit it and then someone spins up a wiki while I'm presenting, that would be really bad, so I'm probably not going to do a live demo. But maybe I can do with preview and not actually save anything. So we're going to add a new section called very creatively new section. Yeah, so we're adding this, and we're adding this in desktop, we're adding it in tablet, and we're adding it in mobile. Often users will add a section in only desktop and not realize that they have to do it in tablet and mobile, and we give them a warning. And sometimes users will delete the closing curly braces, and we actually have an abuse filter for, so if you look over here where it says don't edit this line, people will sometimes edit this line, or they will delete this line. And we actually have an abuse filter that I believe it warns you but doesn't prohibit the action. But the important part is that we find out, and we track you down, and we say, why did you delete the line that says don't delete this line? And then we find out the reason, and then we try and make it better. And over time, the number of people who don't delete this line has gone down. Originally there were 2 lines there, and it was don't delete after this, and it was just, So we're trying to make this like as clear as possible, and we will track people down if they delete that line. And the simple act of having an abuse filter that tells us when people do something wrong is incredibly helpful, and I extremely recommend this process to anyone who deals with a large number of wikis where you have to find out when people are doing the wrong thing. Finding that out at edit time is an amazing tool. So that whole preload, oh, what did I just click? Okay, so that whole preload that we're seeing over here, this is using the preload functionality of MediaWiki, built-in tool. I personally feel that this is one of the most underutilized tools in all of MediaWiki. Preloads are really, really, really useful, and if I have a little bit of time afterwards, which I might, I'll just talk a bit about preloads and why they're so cool. But so what we have over here is an input box, and this is how the new section will look after you save or preview this code. And you know what, I'm gonna do something I probably shouldn't do and see if I can just actually demo this. So instead of external here, we're gonna have new section. We'll copy this and then paste here, and then paste here, and then we're gonna preview. So this is the new section. And then I can open this in a new tab, and then I actually get this preload over here. And you can see in the URL that this is the whole preview string, which is loading from the page. One thing I kind of wish is that like if there's a preload string here, then you have a link to whatever the preload is. But you know, most users don't need to know that. So you get this preload. You hopefully don't edit or delete the closing part of the line, or else everything will break. And the reason I clicked on this instead of create the box is that input box doesn't actually work in preview. If anyone wants to fix that, that would be greatly appreciated. So this was actually my last slide. Oh, yeah, okay. So this is the list of all of the components. If you want to install this on your own wiki, go ahead. It's licensed under CC by SA, and you are absolutely welcome to install this. I think it was designed for gaming wikis in mind, but there's nothing about the code that screams gaming wiki. Pretty much any wiki should be able to use this. One thing I do want to call out, and if you have any trouble installing it, please reach out to me. But one thing I do want to call out is that we slightly changed the way that gadget page names work. So if you try to copy the gadgets to the same page locations on your wiki, it will not work unless your wiki is hosted on wiki.gg, or if you have installed our small fork of gadgets. We have a syntax that I think is a lot better. That's a topic for another talk. Everything else should just work out of the box. If anyone wants our abuse filters, reach out to me, I can send them to you. There's a lot of them that are, again, not anti-vandalism, but anti-not reading what you were supposed to read. So I think that's everything. So does anyone have any questions?
Awesome, thanks, Megan.
Hi. So first of all, it's a creative solution to a problem that is really time-consuming for users. I'm a big fan of that. My question is, so you said early on that your goal is to make it so people don't have to stop using this framework. You want to make it extensible enough and have enough features to not have people just say, this isn't worth it, I'm going to use, I don't know, subs or something and just move away from this entirely. What is your process for, I guess, analyzing feature requests related to this, and what are the trade-offs that you think about with regard to making the framework more complicated versus saying your use case is weird enough that I don't want to bother with changing this for you?
So I'm going to answer this about Druid info boxes instead of the main page framework, because we have had so few feature requests about this since we launched it that we have not had a trade-off for this yet. But it's something that I deal with a lot with Druid info boxes, which is another thing that we also want to be super extensible, etc. So my approach with Druid is that I try to, so if it seems like a feature that lots of wikis would want, I will do it. So an example of this would be that Druid has the ability to tab between images, and when you tab between images, you will also be able to tab between data in the info box, right? So if you have, say you have some card that has 3 evolutions and you want to know what is its attack, what's its HP, what's its health regen at each of the 3 evolutions. When you tab between the images, you also tab between the data. A feature request that we got that I had to think for a while whether I wanted to implement this or not was that people wanted to have independent tabs for different sections in the info box. So maybe the image information is able to tab between different skins that you have. So you want to be able to see like the red skin, the blue skin, the green skin of the card. And then the stats section is tabbing between level 1, level 2, level 3. And that was a lot of code to add to make that work, especially because at that point, the image tabs already transformed all of the sections that you would have. So I had to make something that would transform just the one section while not being affected by the tabs that were already there that were going to attempt to transform everything. I wasn't sure if I wanted to. I thought about it for a while, how much work is it going to be? And I tried to just come up with, okay, what are other use cases for this? Ask in chat, is any other wiki interested in this? If multiple wikis say, yes, I'm interested in this, sure, I'll do it. If no one says they're interested in it and it seems like it's going to be a huge amount of work, I try to add a hook. And then I say, okay, so do it yourself. Maybe I'll do it for you, but it's going to be done through a hook. Currently, IMP, the main page framework, does not have any hooks, again, because we just haven't gotten many feature requests. Maybe that'll change after today. But generally, I try to, if it's something that only one wiki wants, but it's like a 1% increase in complexity, I'll probably just do it. I would say my limit is probably about like 150 lines of code, at which I'm like, I really don't want to add 150 lines of code to this just because one wiki wants it. So at that point, I really need to know for a while. And then one other thing that I do, which I also highly recommend, is that if I am thinking about making a change to Druid, I will do, my first thing that I do at that point when I have like, okay, maybe this is a change, is that I do nothing for a week. And at the end of the week, I say, okay, what have my thoughts been for the past week? How do I feel about this now? And literally just making myself wait 7 days before I do anything at all gives me a lot of perspective, and I don't make impulsive changes to the code base because I do that. And if you are ever on the fence about whether you should add a feature or not, I highly recommend doing nothing for 7 days.
Megan, that's amazing. I take the same approach when it comes to client requests. I basically wait. If it's really urgent, I do it. We need to set up the next talk, but I do have a quick question for you from Jeffrey. I guess he's watching online. And you can take this to answer it so that Tim can set up here.
Oh, yeah.
But the question, I'll just read it, and then you can take the mic from me, is who do we attribute if we wish to use this, and how often do you intend to update it?
So who to attribute, ideally you would import the revision history so that you're getting the, like you would make an interwiki to our default Lodo.wiki and use the special import export feature, and then everything is set up correctly with the attribution in the contributions. You can attribute it to wiki.gg staff if you want to like additionally put something. How often you need to update it, again, we get so few feature requests for this that like, you're probably fine if you literally never update it again, but maybe that will change after this talk.
Great, thanks so much. And we have our next talk online.
All right, and you can start immediately in 3, 2, 1. You are still muted right now?
I'm muted. All right. Hi, everyone. I can't see any of you. I don't even know if I'm being seen or heard. Tim will probably tell me that I am. Great. I'm Travis. I'm in California where it is 2:30 a.m., but I am happy to be joining you virtually for this talk. So we're going to be talking about using MediaWiki as a link shortening service, like link shortening like bit.ly, tiny URL, stuff like that. So I'm coming to you from San Francisco, and I participate in the Noisebridge Hackerspace, which is in San Francisco. And we had a problem, which was that our links were ugly. Noisebridge.net is hosted as MediaWiki. The whole website is just a MediaWiki install. But we would post these like posters around the city or around the workspace, and they would just have these links on them that like no one's ever going to type that in, right? And if you look at especially this one on the bottom here, like the article title is case sensitive, so it has to be a lowercase o. It's just an awful mess. So let's buy a domain. nb.wtf is available. So it's like nb as in Noisebridge and .wtf because WTF not. So what will we put there? URL shorteners are basically just hash map, right? Like it's like a kind of like a weekend project for a hacker to put together a URL shortener. But we don't want this to really be open to the public, and we don't really want to incur a lot of hosting costs and stuff like that. So maybe we can solve this with MediaWiki. Let's see. Here's a snippet of, spoiler alert, we can solve it with MediaWiki. Here's a screenshot of the page at MBWTF on the wiki itself. And you can see here we have the short codes, the slugs in the left column, and then the page that it goes to in the right column. So the URL can be an on-wiki link, in which case you can just use wiki syntax, double bracket syntax to put the link there, or it can be an actual full URL, and that's fine. And the way this works is you go to nb.wtf/donate. There's a application running, a web app running at that URL. It doesn't have a front end. There's no HTML for it. It just reads the request that says /donate. It searches for donate in the database, and it sends a 302 redirect to that big long wiki link. So basically, yeah, you just go to the URL, it looks up donate in the database, and then it sends you to the link on the wiki. More interesting is how do we actually update this database? The database being like this page that I showed you a second ago, right? That's the database for this service. So basically, the wiki page is updated. We have a MediaWiki extension that has an on-page save complete hook. And when I was building this, maybe there's some other way to do this, but as far as I understand, on-page save complete is going to run on every page save complete across the entire wiki. So what we do is we just check, was the incoming page the mb.wtf page? If not, return immediately. And if it was, we just do an AJAX request to this special URL, API v1 on update of mb.wtf. It's just a fire and forget because we don't need to read any data from that URL. Just requesting this URL, if you requested it right now on your laptop, it causes the next 3 steps to happen. And those 3 steps are on the mb.wtf app server. So the app server in step 4 here, it makes a server-side HTTP request to the Noisebridge wiki /mb.wtf. It reads the page response and parses the HTML, not the wiki text, the full HTML as you would get in a browser. It basically just looks for, TD elements in the table. And then it overwrites the database with the contents of what was on that wiki page. So there's no incremental updates. It just rewrites the database every time. All right, let's do a demo. I should have had my pages up and ready for this, but okay. So here, if I go to mb.wtf with no link, it brings me to the wiki page. And then as the text at the top will tell you, all of the text besides the table gets ignored because we're just parsing the HTML. and looking for TD, table columns and table rows. Here's the full list of links. And then if we edit this page, and then we can look down here, insert below. Oh, I should make it clear that there is no existing. Well, you might just have to trust me. But if I go to this link right now, you can't see this, but it just gives a 404 page. But let's say we want a link to MediaWiki User Developer Conference. I'm going to put the URL, save changes, add demo link. And now, so the edit was saved, the PHP extension pinged the mb.wtf API page, the update page. And then now if I go here, let's see, did it work? Yep. I don't think you can see my address bar, but MediaWiki Users and Developers Conference. So, and it takes me to this page. So that worked. Okay, cool. Looks like we've maybe got a few minutes because I think we didn't start exactly on time. So basically what's so great about this, it's tightly coupled with the use of our wiki, because a lot of the short links that we're creating are going to be wiki pages anyway. Number two here is probably the most important, that it uses our existing user authentication and authorization. So, you know, not everyone in the public gets an account on our wiki. We are a closed wiki. So wiki accounts have to be approved and verified. And so once you have wiki access, you can just go to the page and we know that you're a member of the community that's trusted to edit the wiki. If you're trusted to edit the wiki, you're trusted to add these short links to the mb.wtf. A nice advantage of this is that it's easy to see and audit and edit the links. So if something gets out of date or there was a typo or something, someone else can just get in there really quickly and fix it, no problem. There were no marginal hosting costs for this because we deployed on our existing infra. As far as, you know, the PHP extension is just built into the MediaWiki install. And then the mb.wtf web app is posted on cloud free tiers, just free quota, because it's just so tiny and takes up so little resources. And there's basically near zero maintenance costs. It just works. Like, this was built over a weekend and it hasn't required any ongoing maintenance or anything besides just adding some cool new features here and there. So here are some links. I don't know. I'll have to ask Tim to see where I can post this slide deck because it will be public. You can check out these links. The here's the noise bridge. Well, I think I killed my presentation, didn't I? Well, so here's some links, and then yeah, I guess I closed the tab I was sharing. Oops. And then real quick, the code is, it's like 50 lines of code. This is the Python code that serves the links. So it's like maybe it's like 100 lines of code. And then for MediaWiki developers out there, here is this is the MediaWiki extension. All it does is check, is the page the WTF page? If not, return. Otherwise, just do a request to that on update endpoint and send it, and you're done. So that is it. Any feedback or did people clap? Is it, I don't know. They did? Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Sure. Oh, okay, yeah. Right. So I think actually I think the policy might have changed recently to allow public editable access to some subset of pages on the wiki. So that's probably not a bug, but yeah, allowing links to itself is probably not great. What I'm not sure what the I mean the user will be sad with themselves, but it doesn't really affect us, right? Cool. Okay, thank you.
would say we have to wait about 1 more minute. People
Right,
are
that's
making
fine.
their way. Okay. We can just about start. Feel free to loudly say hello to the crowd for 10 seconds and then you can go.
Okay.
Okay, everybody. Next talk up. The stage is not yet yours because people still need to quiet.
Okay. So good morning, everyone. My name is Marijn van Wezel. I work at Wikibase Solutions, and I'm going to be talking about Semantic MediaWiki and what risks are associated with it currently and the future outlook on the development of Semantic MediaWiki. So let's begin by saying that Semantic MediaWiki is a very large extension. I ran some analytics and the code base is over 355,000 lines of code, and that excludes whitespace and comments, spread over more than 3,000 files. Of those 355,000 lines of code, 217,000 are PHP, 18,000 are JavaScript, and about 110,000 are something else, JSON configurations, and some readmes. But most of it is PHP, as you can see. This makes it one of the largest MediaWiki extensions in existence, and it's only surpassed by some Wikimedia extensions such as Wikibase. But more importantly, large parts of this code base have been untouched for many years, for over 5 years now, and we'll see a graph in a bit. And also large parts are without proper documentation. Many parts of the project are understood by very little people, and this makes it difficult to implement new changes. Finally, there's a lack of institutional support, but this is improving with the recent open collective setup by Bernard, which is very nice, but it's still not enough. Let's look at this very interesting graph, which I'll explain. So we have two graphs. On the left side, you see code ownership, and on the right side, you see a burn down graph. The code ownership graph is probably the most interesting. You can see that at the beginning, there was very little code until MW James joined, which is this red blob that gradually increases over here. If we also look at the scale that we have here, we can see that in about 6 years' time, around 400,000 lines of code were added by MW James. And because this is a code ownership graph, this means that around 350,000 lines of code that were added by MW James have never been touched since they were added. So that means that about 75% of the extension is still only written by a person who is no longer involved with the project. This is also reflected in the burn down graph we see here on the right. So a burn down graph, how it works is that each of these colors represents a year, and the y-axis represents the amount of code, and the x-axis represents time. So if you look at the beginning, we just see that, for instance, in 2006, this represents the year 2006. Almost all of the code that was added in 2006 has since been updated. But the code that was added by MW James, which is this rather steep curve that we see here, almost all of the code is still in the project today. we can see this big drop here that I'm not 100% sure what caused that, but it's probably some reformatting. The fact that the code remains in the extension is not necessarily a super bad thing. It can have two reasons. The code is still stable and it works. Why would you update it? Or the code is able to benefit from certain changes, but no one really understands it, and therefore these changes are not made. My feeling is that it's a mix of both. The code is not terrible. It's pretty good code and it works quite well. But it's also understood by very little people, and I think it can benefit from certain changes. And this was also outlined in the talk we had on Tuesday about Bucket, and Jonathan explained that there are theoretically certain improvements that we can do, but which aren't done because no one really knows how to do them. As a side note, I created these charts using open source application called Hercules. Let's move on to the second maintenance risk, is that Semantic MediaWiki is very complicated. Semantic MediaWiki has many features, and it's unclear which features are actually used at all. The second problem is that these features are often interleaved in ways that in unexpected ways. This makes changes to the extension and to individual features more cumbersome to do, and especially large architectural changes such as those that such as the performance optimizations that Jonathan mentioned, or for the upcoming parsoid migration, are extremely difficult. This is made even worse by the number of configuration variables and hooks that Semantic MediaWiki provides. Of course, this configuration is very nice. You can tweak it to whatever you like, but it also carries with it even more maintenance because you have to account for even more factors. Semantic MediaWiki is also quite slow, which was mentioned by Jonathan as well. So according to WeirdGloop, which is the company Jonathan works at, Semantic MediaWiki accounts for about 75% of all database writes. And while this could theoretically be optimized, like I already mentioned before, no one really knows how to do this. And especially because these performance optimizations require large architectural changes. So I want to compare Semantic MediaWiki a bit to a knitted castle. To change something on a knitted castle, you would have to untangle the whole, but what we ideally would want is some kind of castle made out of Lego, where we can easily swap components and change things as we like, and maybe even add custom things more easily on top of it. But that's currently just a dream. So what does the future for Semantic MediaWiki hold? I think as users of and developers of Semantic MediaWiki, we need to think critically about the future of its development. So there are a couple of options that I outline here. We can continue as is. This is the easiest option. But there are also growing risks, especially with the upcoming parsoid migration. Next, we could refactor and simplify. This would be a significant effort and might even be impossible with the current state of Semantic MediaWiki. But this is already somewhat underway with the recent Open Collective, and it might be the easiest, and not the easiest, but the option that would satisfy the most people. Third, we could build something else or move to something completely new. This is, of course, also a very significant effort, and we need to think deeply about what kind of features we want to maintain, and we need to not make a second SMW and include a bunch of features that no one really uses. And finally, we can do something else, and I would like you to discuss this with others. But some considerations that you can make is who will maintain and fund the project, and what are the features that must be preserved in the core extension. Thank you for listening. This was my lightning talk.
Many. Asana?
Okay, I will. First, I guess. Who's first?
So thanks for this. I think this is probably the most important talk of this conference by a pretty wide margin, and honestly, I think at some point we should have a much larger discussion, maybe at a future conference, I don't know the exact situation, about all of the issues you bring up. My specific question is, with regard to parsoid, to what extent is that just a huge cliff that we have no idea how to recover from, both in terms of changes that are going to need to happen to the extension itself, and also changes to the usages, especially in-text annotations, that more legacy users of SMW are going to have to deal with?
Could you hear the question?
Yeah, I heard it. Yeah, so it's still a bit unclear what kind of changes parses will exactly bring. I recently wanted to migrate a very small extension to work with parsoid, but I wasn't able to because there's no documentation on it. And I also don't think it's ready yet, but I think it's very unclear what kind of changes need to happen to make Semantic MediaWiki compatible with parsoid. Of course, if we go back, Semantic MediaWiki binds over 40 hooks, and I think maybe 10 or 20 of these hooks will disappear when parsoid completely rolls out. So I don't know. Probably quite a large number of changes need to happen, but it's very unclear.
Okay, we have like 2 more questions. So.
Yeah, Marion, thanks for bringing this up to the table. It's Alexander speaking. So I have maybe slightly different view. You have a KPI like saying there is a ton of untouched files with the conclusion that the code might be dead. Could be the opposite, like code works well. It's a dangerous KPI, I would say. And the other thing you said, it's complicated, and I think it should be termed complex. Having 150 configuration variables is complex, but not necessarily complicated.
Right.
On the other hand, it's of course there are some corners that should take our attention, and I would again replicate that it's important to have good test coverage. That's something we should focus before we throw everything into the bin and trying to build it up from scratch or so. I think code coverage is the key to make this also stable in the future. And as we've seen in the last year, I would say, we saw that with the re-enabled code coverage and automated tests, we also attracted new developers that did massive changes on the code base, removing tons of deprecation and things. So I think that's important and also key factor.
Yeah, definitely. So like I mentioned, the last 2 years have been really improving the development of SMW. So I think that's great. About what you said about the automated tests, I think automated tests are very useful to keep maintaining Semantic MediaWiki to see if everything still works, but I don't think it would help with reducing the current complexity of Semantic MediaWiki. Those are just not correlated in my opinion.
Hello Marijn, this is Bernard. I also have a comment. I have been very active for the last 5 years in trying to address the same problem that you have addressed. So I totally agree with you, but the thing is that the Semantic MediaWiki community has been spoiled by this one developer for a long time, and we have not learned to collaborate better on this issue for the last 5 years. Giving this talk from Wikibase is kind of a little bit strange because there are sponsors in the room, companies that technically or financially support Semantic MediaWiki. Wikibase is not one of them, unfortunately, so I hope this is going to change. And the dimension of the problem also is much smaller than you think, because MW James had a development capacity of maybe 10 hours or 15 hours, let's say 20 hours a week. So if we cannot find 20 hours of developer resources, that would be ridiculous. So they are in the room already. We would just have to focus on you know, maybe, for example, and that this is something that you have contributed to. For example, Wikibase Netherlands uses a lot the Elasticsearch plugin, so you fixed problems in there. So this is your contribution. That's great. So others will have other contributions, and there will be no one person that has the control over the knowledge over the whole code. There's not one person in LibreOffice that knows every part of the code. So we have to overcome this problem by continuing to better collaborate with one another, being it developer resources or being it financial support, because there are companies who make profit off of Semantic MediaWiki and have done so for the last 20 years without contributing a lot back, and this has to change, obviously. So again, this is my invitation to, we try to have technical meetings where we would split work, but nothing followed. By then I set up the financial stuff, so there are things going on. So just everyone in the room, this is not only going to you in the Netherlands here, everyone in the room, we need to make this change because no one is going to make it for us. If we don't change it, no one will, because there is no one developer that knows everything, and we will need to do that. So I invite you to do this, and I think we have made good progress with Alexander Gesin's contribution to the better code and test coverage, but there's still a lot to do, so let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah, so do I have time to reply quickly?
Very quick, because we're really out of time.
Yeah, so this talk was not meant as like a Semantic MediaWiki sucks or something. It was really meant as, okay, we need to really think about the future and how are we going to contribute. And I unfortunately don't make the financial decisions at Wikibase, otherwise I would have donated. But that's just to be clear.
Okay, we really need to continue with the program. So thank you everyone for your contributions to the discussion. I think it's an important discussion to have. And we will now switch to another topic concerning Wikibase.
Won't go full screen. Okay. Yeah, then I'll just start. Let's try this. Is this working? Yeah, okay. Hi, I'm Lukas Günther. I'm working at the TIP at the Open Science Lab with, for example, my colleagues Koya Bai or Gergana Zachkova or Lucia Soman you saw last day. And together with Koya Bai, we started this project we named Wikibase for Research because we wanted to have a nice reproducible build of a Wikibase environment where we can load in different services as well, which were accompanying our Wikibase instance. And so we first tried to use the Docker pipeline from WMDE, which was really good, but did not fit our purpose exactly because we figured out that when we wanted to use Wikibase, it was fine. When we wanted to use Semantic MediaWiki, it was also fine, but then we came to the point where we wanted to use Semantic Wikibase, and there we had some problems, and after a while we found out that the problems were because they had to be loaded in a specific order, and we couldn't do that with the ready-built Docker image. So we screwed the Docker image open and put our own stuff in, and then with a lot of duct tape, the Wikibase for Research was slowly growing. Yeah, so what I just said, we had this dependency problem on different extensions which would rely on each other, but we had to use them or load them in a specific order. And sometimes also, like you said with the recommended revisions 2 days ago, you need to have specific versions of plugins or extensions to work together. Then we had a lot of manual configuration when we wanted to have different instances running. And we wanted not to just like copy paste our configurations and then we change one configuration and the other ones don't change. So we wanted like a more centralized approach to that. And then we had some problems also with requests because sometimes we wanted to not have the requests over the normal network just internally with Docker, and we had needed to some magic with that, and also we needed a good plan for backups because we wanted to have this all in the one configuration folder where we can all version the same stuff and don't have like multiple places where we store different data. So yeah, we documented our pain on our journey to that. You're invited to look into the issue link we provided there because we found out there were a lot of issues, sometimes unanswered on the internet, and we tried to make just one big list, which is not really good indexed by Google. So maybe you have to look in there. Yeah, so you're invited to look there if you have some problems setting up Wikibase, especially with Semantic MediaWiki or Semantic MediaWiki base. Yeah, like I said, we wanted reproducible builds. So we wanted to have like a config folder we have extracted out of the whole MediaWiki thing just to store or version this only in our GitLab. And a single source of truth, because when we wanted to change one extension to do something and to make a configuration, it sometimes got lost in our local settings and didn't transport to the other instances, so we wanted one single source of truth. Then we thought of something like an extension manifest, also like the recommended revisions. We didn't hear about that this last year, so yeah. And so we came up like something also like a package manager for that, and then we just wanted to have one CLI command which takes over everything, so we don't have to remember different commands and stuff like that. So then, yeah, this overview shows what we then thought of. Like I said, we put a configuration folder and everything which was configurable out of the whole MediaWiki and all its services. And then we have on top the wiki.sh. This is the CLI command I was talking about, which is like controlling everything or trying to control everything. Sometimes it breaks everything, but that's another story. Yeah, and also the reason we wanted to have this approach was we can add services like the WDQS or Elasticsearch, the Job Runner, OpenRefine easily, or just don't use them. So, and we want to have this like very easy configurably. So here you see a slide overview where I can a little bit explain what's happening here. I don't know if I can. No, it's not mirrored. So this is the wiki.sh command. This does a lot of things. I can tell more about that later. And then we have like different services. You also heard about Semantic Compact. We also have a compact service which we can boot up with our Wikibase, and it's automatically connected and collects metadata when you're uploading a new object in Compact. The metadata appears in the Wikibase. It's all configured. So it's very specific use cases, of course. Yeah, and many different services like Elasticsearch and stuff like that. And then we have this template folder. The template folder holds the extensions, and this is like Joran explained with the recommended revisions. It's folder which holds a lot of extensions, and those extensions itself, they hold information about them and how they work together and how they the local settings have to be set. And the collection JSON in there, this is just something we thought of because we wanted to have like instances which always work the same, but sometimes we just need a wiki base. Sometimes we needed a semantic wiki base, and so we came up with collections. Collections are a set of extensions and services which need to be run together. So we can just start up a collection, and then we have a ready semantic wiki base, for example. Then the base folder just holds like basic configuration. It's when you need some basic configuration, for example, in local settings. And the config.py tool is the templating tool which all glues that together and puts it in the wiki projects folder. And in the wiki projects folder, there's all your configuration which you can version, and you don't have all the MediaWiki stuff in it. So yeah. Then there's the wiki.sh command. So this is just a few commands out there. There's a very big list if you put in wiki.sh --help. And you always specify the path to your project, and then you can do several things, make dumps, munch the Wikibase data, and execute maintenance commands, but a lot more, but you can look in there in the help command. Yeah. So I mentioned the collections JSON. And here's a brief overview of that. So in the beginning, you see the MediaWiki base. It's like very, I just deleted a lot of lines because I just wanted to give over a view what it could look like. So in the beginning is the MediaWiki base, and some extensions we might always want to use with the MediaWiki base because it's just for our use case suitable. And then we have another collection which is called Wikibase plain, and Wikibase plain has also like extensions and requirements, but also extends the MediaWiki base collection. So we want just have everything in what the MediaWiki base, of course, has as well, because we don't want to make always a new list with the same extensions because we need them always. And then there's the requirements, and the requirements just specifies the services we want to start with our whole instance. So for example, Elasticsearch or the Blaze graph. And Semantic Wikibase, of course, then extends the Wikibase plain and Semantic MediaWiki, and there should also be the line extensions Semantic Wikibase, of course. Yeah. Here you see the inheritance, how it all comes together then in the end. And then in the end, you have like on all of the Docker images is running traffic. Oh no, not on all. It's just running on one, but it connects all the Docker images together. And then you can give your own address in the init process when you're initializing your Wikibase, and have all those URLs defined, and you can just access them and have your services running. What I just said with the initialization process, you just type wiki.sh in it, and then you get walked through a menu. I tried to make it user-friendly, but it's still on a terminal. But maybe in future, we wanted to maybe make like a web-driven initialization process. And and the other one, you can make it programmatically, so you can put it in your Docker pipeline or something like, or in your GitLab pipeline to deploy it without going into a menu. And there you can set all the settings and the environment file which are needed. And also there's, there's still wrong comments up there. You can also add extensions. It's like very very basic. You can add extensions to the templating folder. When you type wiki sh add extension, it will query the QID of the extension and get the Git links, for example, and maybe also recommended other stuff, and then puts it into the template folder. So yeah, the current limitations are that updates don't propagate. So when we have an update in the templating settings, it's not propagating right now into the config folder. We want to change it as well. But until now, we have to change that manually. Right now, we're only supporting 1.39, which is like running out of the LTS at the end of this year. So we're very eager to update that, because we're actually only supporting that right now. You can't put in a version number and just go from there. I just tested it on Linux, so maybe you can try it on the subsystem on Windows, but I don't know if it works. And yeah, the version support is ending, so I already mentioned that. So, and in the future, we want to update, of course. I already said that. And the LLM integration of Kolya, you heard yesterday, we want to implement that, so you can just make up the service, and there's already vector search available with the LLM. Also Antelope is another topic Kolya would have talked about yesterday if you was here. We want to integrate that as well, and we want to extend collections, so we have more to choose from instead from just MediaWiki base, Wikibase, and Semantic MediaWiki. So more extensions which work together, and maybe we use the recommended versions and look into that, maybe find something. And yeah, it would be nice to have a set of collections which work together with different services. Yeah. So you can find us on GitLab, everything is open. You can contribute, of course. You find the issue list I mentioned earlier. And if you have if you're using it and you're having a collection, maybe share it with us. Yeah, you can find us there. Thank you.
Excellent. Do we have any questions? Okay.
Hi. Jeroen de Douw in his talk about Wikibase essentially said that Semantic Wikibase is currently unusable, if I understood him correctly, or at least it's got a lot of issues. Assuming that's true, do you agree with that, or are you able to use it successfully?
No, that's the reason we're using 1.39.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So easy. But yeah, when we're updating now in end of December, hopefully, we want to see what's the issues. Maybe we're getting some pull requests, and I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, if not, thanks very much, Lucas.
Thank you.
And we can set up the next presentation.
Okay, I think I'm set up. So, hello again. My name is Robert Vogel from the Hallo Welt company, and I want to give you a report about our efforts throughout the year
for making MediaWiki and especially BlueSpice WCAG or BitV compatible. So first of all, I probably need to give an overview over a couple of abbreviations and terms, which we will cover quickly. So you have a basic understanding. I mean, something like WCAG is probably known by everybody, but there may be some things new to you. Then, I want to talk about why we even did this and how it started and what challenges we faced throughout this process. And covering our solutions for them. And last but not least, obviously, what's up next. So first of all, starting with the terms, the most known information is probably the WCAG itself, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, which is an international standard. They are around for a long time. Everybody who basically learned about web development has heard about them. It's part of every basic course. And there are some guidelines of how to write semantic or accessible HTML, how to do things right so the web development that one does is accessible. In addition to that, there is a European standard. It's called Accessibility Requirements for ICT, so Information and Community Technology Products and Services, which applies in certain circumstances. And why is this important? Because there is also BitWi, at least this is important for us as a German company. So the BitWi is a regulation, a law in Germany that that manages or regulates accessibility in the IT sector, and it basically includes the European norm and the WCAG norm, or the WCAG standard. By the way, WCAG can come in different, well, not flavors, but different versions and levels, and this is also specified in the BitWi, in the Barrierefreie Informationstechnikverordnung, that is WCAG 2.1 AA. There would be also a AAA, but this one includes only the AA. And the last but not least, there are the acronyms WPAT and ACR. So basically, that is some document that a software vendor can provide to customers, so they can the customers can know what parts of the application or how accessible the application is. WPAT in this case is a template, as the name says. So it's basically an empty document, just giving a set of sections that need to be filled, and the accessibility conformance report is then the filled template. And our goal was to get a BitWi certification or test report. You need to have this done by a third party, so sponsored by somebody external. You cannot do it on your own. Theoretically, you could create an ACR on your own. That's totally possible, but obviously it makes sense to have some external, somebody from external do the test, and from that you can basically derive or you can create such an ACR. Okay, so now let's come to MediaWiki and BlueSpice. So first of all, as I said, WCAG is a very common thing. Everybody knows about it. Everybody knows why it is important, and everybody tries to comply with it. So did we. So in new extensions, in new interfaces that we develop, we clearly check that we use semantic HTML, that we use area attributes where required and stuff. But as it turned out, that is not necessarily sufficient. So first of all, I think we need to slightly differentiate between two use cases of MediaWiki. I would have identified one use case as being a website, more or less, like Wikipedia. Wikipedia is accessed by millions and millions of people every day. Most of them are anonymous. Most of them will not interact with any more advanced interface than, let's have, say, a navigation tree or something. Some may edit, that's true, but many of them will just navigate through the interface and read. As a difference to that, something like Blue Spice or many other MediaWiki applications that we have by third-party users are more like web applications. They're much more interactive. They have more features. They often require authenticated user context, which again opens up a variety of interfaces, which can then be, which then are also need to have proper WCAG compliance. There are a couple of challenges. So first of all, MediaWiki itself does a good job in many places regarding WCAG, but in others not, especially in edit and admin interfaces, for example, or the special preferences is such a case where there were actually some issues which were very difficult to overcome. But also user-generated content, and I mean, user-generated content, that's the main part of the wiki, right? So editors can create their own content, and usually, as long as they use the regular markup, like for lists, for tables, for headlines, everything should be fine. And that's true, at least to some degree, because there are some fine differences, for example, in the documentation flow. We also had to learn that. For example, the order of where an image appears in the document flow can matter. So for example, if you have a section with a text, and next to the text there is an image floating, this position is not necessarily determined by where the image is in the document flow. So in our case, for example, we had an image in the content above the headline. So by a screen reader, it first read the image and then the headline, which basically is a fail. So these are things that you cannot really address in the context of software development. You can provide guidelines, you can provide help, you can provide support to editors, but you can probably not manage this by software development. And there's also something to consider, that is modern design. By the way, I don't say that it's not possible to make accessible modern design. It's totally possible, but modern design often uses several, it aims to look very good. So they play with contrasts, like text is not black, but it's gray, for example, or icons are grayed, or something like that. And it turns out that this quickly can become an issue for accessibility if you're not very careful with doing that. Okay, let's move on. So what are the key areas that WCAG and the BitWi tests cover? So there's more to it, but this is really just the most important ones. One of the things is keyboard navigation, obviously. So a user must be able to navigate through all the interface with the keyboard in a meaningful order, and that's already a difficult part. And there must not be any keyboard traps or unreachable elements. So if there's a button that is visible but not reachable by the keyboard, that's a fail, for example. And to give an example, that is the case with the pop-up extension of MediaWiki, where there is a nice pop-up. You can navigate to a link, it will show a pop-up, and that's it, and you cannot get into that pop-up properly, and you can also not go to any of those buttons. Then obviously visual properties like contrast, I've already mentioned it. The behavior for when it comes to zoom or non-standard coloring or custom styles applied to the application. Modern browsers also provide accessibility features by default, and it turns out that there can be quite some issues, for example, with the OOJS themes, where at some point the icons were just not visible anymore in a given context. By the way, this has improved over the versions of MediaWiki, and with codecs, this has become better also, but we had such issues. And last but not least, we have the screen reader compatibility. So for people that actually cannot see, they need to hear stuff. And here also, it is not very easy to design that, because similar to the keyboard navigation, the order of things being read to a user is very important, and also what is read to a user. And it is pretty difficult for a non-blind person to understand what matters here. And there's very little guidelines. How did we approach that? First of all, we made a test. Basically, that was not even, basically this came from one of our customers. One of our customers said they want to have this test. We made the test, and we got a report, and the report was not that good. So we basically first try to understand the results, because this is also not that simple. The test is made with a very specific test definition, so you can look it up. It is very well documented. It clearly states what it tests, when it tests, what the expectation is, what the outcome is, and so on. So that's quite nice. But the results coming back, you still need to interpret. This was an 80-page document, and you need to go through each and every of this and understand what is here actually the case. And when you then understand the case, you need to find a solution, which is quite a lot of effort. It quickly turned out that we need to build up more knowledge on that, and you can either learn it on your own, which is good. There are courses out there, but many of the courses, especially many of the courses that you find are really basic and will not actually help you for the test. We tried that. We were looking for consultants, for people that can actually help us understand and provide us with suggestions on how to improve. And obviously, we had to build up our tool landscape. Then we need to learn, and then we need to improve and make the test again. And that's basically how we approached all this. So next, I have a couple of no, wait, that's just one image. There are other images following. So this is just an example of how such a report looks like. Actually, this is the on the left side. You can see the overview. That's not the actual report. That's just the overview of the report, section by section, telling which of those sections applies, which were okay, which were not okay, or which were only partially okay. And on the right side, this is a very interesting example. This is actually out of the test of the report document, and here you can see a screenshot from what the tester did, basically. And that is special preferences. That's just nothing by BlueSpice. This is the BlueSpice skin, yes, but the special preferences page is for MediaWiki. And here you can see what they actually tested. So they are setting screen sizes, and they are setting zooms and stuff like that. And in this case, this is actually just the screen size. They have set it to a certain level, but they are also doing stuff with zooming in. And one of the things, I'm not sure if this is, it actually it says this up there. It's in German, but it says they're using a resolution of 1280 with a zoom of 400%. And that is quite a lot. Then you get effects like breaking, overlapping, whatever, and you fail. And that's super difficult to overcome. Okay, what else? So, wait, sorry. The whole MediaWiki interface, and also especially the Bluespace interface, is way too huge to cover all. It's way too much. So I mean, there are things that are straightforward that also work pretty good, but there are like OV pages. But whenever it comes to a complex interface, like a manager interface, some grids, this gets really difficult. Or trees, for example, get really difficult. So yeah, and also, as I mentioned before, the wiki page content we basically cannot actually control. This was also part of the tests. We had one page with content which we provided, and we said, okay, that's basically a good content as we think it is, and we learned that there is more to it. But yeah, we cannot control this as a software vendor. We can only help people making good content. So as this is such a large field, we had to focus on a particular area, and that is the reader use case. So we decided, okay, most of the most people actually just access the wiki in a reader way. They will still be logged in because that's just the case in BlueSpice. So they will have stuff like preferences, but they will mainly use the search functionality. They will navigate through the interface. They will use the special all pages, for example. And we identified a couple of them, and then we focused on those to improve. Yeah, now we have a couple of screenshots just to show those. As I already said, besides having external support by experts, we also got new tools, and one tool is probably known to most. That is the AXDev tools, to most developers at least. That's a very common tool for checking websites for WCAG compliance. I can only recommend using the Pro edition here because it has some really nice features, especially when it comes to forms and dialogues. And it already gives the developer a very good overview of how complete or how well done this interface is. So you can see this is actually a wizard. There are 3 steps which it guides you through, and that's pretty nice. Another tool that we started using is a screen reader, and that's also not that simple. I mean, screen readers are basically user agents, just like browsers. They're different ones. We have a lot of Linux users, especially the developers. So there's Orca for that, but actually it turns out that the tests are mainly being done with the NVDA screen reader, which is a Windows-only application. So you need to set that up. You need to get that screen reader. That's just good. But just running that screen reader is still not everything that you need to do. You need to understand what is good and what is bad, because the screen reader just reads you stuff. And I mean, as a non-blind person, you may think that is good or good enough. But when the tester tests things with their screen reader, they can be picky about what exactly happens. And it's really important to learn how to use that tool. It's not just you turn it on and then go through the page, but there are features like we see here, some tree, some accessibility tree visualization that actually gives you an insight on how the screen reader sees the site. It's not just there's a protocol where minutes list where it actually says, okay, I'm reading this, I'm reading this, I'm reading this, I'm reading this line by line, but that is not sufficient. You need to understand how it actually sees the website, and you need to build up quite some knowledge about how this tool works, and you need to know what your testers are actually using, because there can be differences to that. So we did this. We walked through this. We are still in the process, to be honest. We have not passed the test yet. We didn't have another one. But as a summary, I can say one clearly underestimates the complexity of this topic. As I said, most developers learn about WCAG. They think if they do some nice structuring, like semantic structuring, if they do their area labels, they are all good. This is not the case. You need to put a lot more effort into that. You need to integrate that into your development process by having checklists, by having audits of your code, and that's quite some effort. As I said, there is some trade-off sometimes between the modern this design. So one reason why the Wikipedia actually, or the Wikipedia case works pretty well is because the vector skin is really bare-bone. It's really simple. More modern skins work different and may have other challenges. So I don't say that it is impossible. You can do it, but it's more difficult as if you have a very simple skin, the vector skin, for example. Then again, yeah, no area is better than bad area. This is also a learning. So developer sometimes thinks he should use an area attribute in a given context, but it turns out that in the end this was the wrong decision. And it's really hard to find good examples, especially for complex interfaces. I mean, most common cases, lists, tables, that's straightforward, but having a filterable and sortable grid, for example, this is rather difficult to find a good example of how these things need to look in a real world scenario. Yeah, as I said, you need tools, and especially you really need to understand how these tools work. This is especially true for the screen reader. It's not sufficient to just have the screen reader. You need to understand how it works and how people use it, actually, and the test users use it. And what we also did is, yeah, having a partner on this is super helpful. So when you get somebody somebody who does the tests, who can also support you in a technical way and give you examples or give you recommendations on all those topics, this is very, very helpful. Yeah, and so what's up next? As I said, we didn't complete the bit.ly test yet, but it's hopefully happening soon, so we are in a good way as far as we can tell. And once this is done, we need to make sure that we stay on this track, and we need to implement this in the development process, and probably also improve in other areas. As I said, we are limiting ourselves at the moment to some degree. And as this is a lot of effort, we may need to hire additional staff for that as well. Not exclusively for that, but basically to split the load between the different developers. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Great. Excellent. Thanks very much. Questions? Okay, there's already a question.
For me, it was very interesting because I'm a member of our quality management unit. And just a question, do you have any experience or knowledge about if this is a matter or an issue during certification processes in the company? You as an organization who sells wikis, probably it is, but if organizations just use wikis in their own environment, could that be a problem, or do you know something about this?
Not that I'm aware of, to be honest.
Okay.
So for us, it's important because it's part of the product, and our customer require it either by law or by otherwise policy. But I think for purely internal tools, I don't think that it applies. Still recommend it because you may have co-workers that may rely on it.
Makes me feel better.
Okay, I come over this way.
Thank you. Just a quick question of clarification, just because I'm not 100% sure I understand the context, even though the presentation was very clear. Is BitV a German equivalent of what in the United States might be Section 508?
I don't know exactly.
Okay.
It is basically a Verordnung, some kind of a law, basically.
Yeah.
So yes, it's a requirement by law.
Okay, and then, and you may have already addressed this up front, but my understanding is that there is an international standard for accessibility that goes by the name Web Content Accessibility Guidelines.
Yeah.
And is BitV an implementation of that?
Exactly, it covers them. BitV includes two standards. One is the WCAG standard, and the other one is the European norm, which I also had on the presentation. So it's a combination. Both need to be implemented for getting the BitV.
Okay, so I think that Section 508 that I'm referring to is the United States implementation of the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. My last question, I apologize for running long, is my hope is that this would be something that's valuable to everyone, especially extension developers who, because ultimately as we want to make MediaWiki and its ecosystem of extensions viable for commercial and government implementation, these accessibility standards are essential. And I know you know that. I'm hoping to just emphasize the point for everyone. Okay, thank you.
Great. Okay, Karsten.
Then looking at the accessibility of a wiki using BlueSpice, obviously you will focus on extensions you create for BlueSpice, but you build up on MediaWiki. You said, for example, also you use MediaWiki extensions. I guess nobody expects you to fix MediaWiki core issues with VCG, whatever it's, do you at least report these issues to Fabricator and say, okay, this is a pop-up extension, this is a big issue because I can't get onto this modal, I can't access the pop-up and things like this, or is this something where you say, okay, I would like to do it, but we haven't hired the staff to do this?
So first of all,
things like this.
The Wikimedia Foundation is aware of this topic. There are fabricated tasks dealing with exactly these things, and they already did a lot of things. So for example, Codex is much better than, for example, OUI. And we are using MediaWiki 143, and more recent versions, there are already some fixes, for example, in Visual Editor. So no, we haven't filed anything yet, but I wouldn't say that we don't do that. So if you find something where we say, okay, this is they don't know about it, you can report it. But again, the problem is the LTS, right? So if we report it, it will probably not fix for us anyways. So unless somebody backports it. But yeah, sure, we're going to share this kind of information. We haven't done so far because also of speed and flexibility. For example, I said the pop-ups extension has an issue, and trying to fix that on the pop-ups extension is extremely difficult. And as the pop-ups extension itself is not that super functionality, the more easy way, unfortunately, is to just say, let's do our own. That is then compatible.
Okay, we really have to wrap up, but Rich, you had something short.
I promised to be quick. Okay. So one of the values that I love about the MediaWiki community is how much they care about multi-language support and internationalization, and I hope that accessibility is on par with internationalization.
Yeah.
Great. And Yaron, you also had your hand up, but is it quick or longer? Okay, shoot, because we have 1 more minute.
About the pop-ups extension, I guess the issue is that there's no such thing as hover on mobile devices. Maybe not. Oh, that's not.
It's not mobile devices. Actually, if you can use keyboard navigation, and there will be actually the pop-up will be shown.
Oh, good to know.
But then you end. So you see something, but you cannot enter it. You cannot get into there. You cannot use there's a button. There's a button, and that is basically a fail in the test.
Okay, so what is the general solution for that kind of thing? for in order to pass accessibility guidelines?
The general solution is one needs to implement that in the development process. One needs to actually check, the developers need to check that there are no keyboard traps, that everything in their flow is accessible by keyboard, for example. And then you would actually need to do some audits using such tools like the X. Yeah.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Okay, great, thanks. Then I think we'll wrap up and we move on with the next presentation. We have a short lightning talk, then thanks very much. So this was a spontaneous suggestion from Wolfgang yesterday to join in, and we had a few minutes that Tim generously said, yes, we can use a few more minutes before lunch. So yeah, Wolfgang will talk to us about MediaWiki playgrounds and AI.
Can you hear me? Thank you. I'm Wolfgang, and as you can see, this is my page, the user page on semanticmediawiki.org. I'd like to point out that it is useful if you have such a page, if you participate here. And in the source of such a page, when you have this attendee template, you can enter all the events that you have taken part in. So MUDCon Fall 2025 would be this one. And that has two effects. It will show up on your page, so you'll see here all the ways, and then you show up in the list of attendees, and it's a bit short this time, it's only 8. So only 8 people did this so far. I'd love to see more. If you have such a page and you did do talks here, the talks will automatically show up in your page. So in my case, you can see all the talks I did in the past. And I'm referring to 2 other talks I held in the past. This is the Wiki AI Playgrounds talk. It's got a page this morning. And then you can link to the slides. Just click see here. And you should end up here. And then we can go to the slideshow mode. And actually, it's only like 3 slides, and I'm only presenting an idea. Of course, we have to have the usual stuff. Here's your cat, here's me, here's my company, here's the customer I'm working for. But this is the idea I want to present. So the idea I want to present is we got the MCP server shown by Jerome. And when you do that, I think some people will be afraid of, okay, if I do this, I might end up with the artificial intelligence doing something to my wiki which I don't want. Can I not make that process safer? So I was thinking, why not have a workflow that uses some technology that I've been using in our association recently, because I suggested, hey, let's have playgrounds. And I'm suggesting to combine the playground idea with that AI idea. So you pick a playground, you pick a source MediaWiki and say, this is a wiki I want to do something with. You pick a playground, you select pages, for instance, a whole category and say, or a few of the pages of a category and say, this is what I want to work with. And then you push the pages to your playground. This is something I showed like 5 years ago. And then you apply the prompts with the MCP server as shown by Jerome. And then you preview your changes and say, I'm happy with it or not. And this is the important point. If now things got berserk, nobody cares. It's just in your playground. So you can approve the changes and say, I'm happy with it, and then you push the changes back. So let's look at the components you would need for that. First of all, you need a playground. So how do you set up a playground? I did that for the association I'm working for. Here we got like 44 wikis. And they're all named after, I don't know, deities. Obviously, the query down here will not make historians happy. They'll say this is not correct. And I had to learn that, but it's still fun. Like the idea was have a Wikidata query that brings you some icons and some names, and it should be like fit on one page, and so it did. So that works. So Zeus is the one, some of these are open already, others are closed, and you can decide that when you own your playing around. You can say, I want to work publicly, or I don't want to work publicly. It's one of the decisions you make. This is unfortunately a bit in German, but I think the stuff that is interesting for you is understandable anyways. So you got the Greek gods list here and the Sparkle query, which is wrong. And then you've got the wiki push starting. And then what we did here, we pushed some of the pages of the SMW to our Zeus. So, and all of a sudden, you will hate it and say, hey, this is not looking correctly anymore. Well, we're focusing on something. All we want is having the Wikidata item correctly. So basically, the whole show is about, let's see whether our pages are correctly linked to Wikidata. And if I'm only interested in that, I'll be happy. The red links I'm not interested in. I just want to know, okay, some of my demo pages don't have Wikidata IDs. That's bad. So I could say, please add the Wikidata IDs to the artificial intelligence, and it would do that, and then I can do my wiki push statements. So I'll show you one way to do a wiki push. So this pushes from SMW to Zeus, so now we've got the page Germany in there. And basically we have to let our artificial intelligence do that for us, because if you want, for instance, all this transitivity, you have to do a lot of pushes. Let's go back to the other components. So you need the MCP server that was shown by Jeroen. You need some kind of automatic setup of your wikis. So I'm proposing MediaWiki Docker, but there's also Canasta out there and other ways how to do that. It's a known technology and it is automatable. In the case that I'm showing you here, it's a pretty quick way to do it. So here you've got the installation script. You can do it just like that here. See, declare your gods, declare something else, what do you do? Clean your Docker. And basically here, we only need two calls to get this all running. One is the checking of the wiki. In my case, that's MDB cluster, so that checks the wiki. Is it correct? Does it have all the extensions installed? And this would be like the command that gives you a new wiki. And then we set up the port like count on, and it depends on the size of your server. This one has 16 gigabyte of RAM, so it depends how many wikis you can run. 44 wikis on that, so it was not a problem. See, it's just a few lines of code. I'm sharing that with you. And then you need the wiki push toolkit or something similar to automate the back and forth. And Jeroen would happily do that in his own PHP code. He used to have a push extension, so that's also known technology. So we should be all set. The question is, what do you think? Should we do this? Is that a useful way to approach this? And we could start a project on that.
Great, thanks very much. Are there any questions in the room? Okay, I think people will just think about it, and we should move on to Tim's presentation because, but where is Tim? Oh, he's always running around. Okay, Tim, it's now time for you.
So, this one is going to be a first for me. I'm starting this presentation with a blank slide. Long story short, I was very impressed with the many speakers here who could just start a whole presentation without having a presentation prepared. Because for me, that's always very comforting to know, okay, I've structured my slides, I have like those 10 slides, and even if I forget something, I can go back to that. But I found it really impressive when some people were like, okay, I have a 30-minute slot. Yes, I just start and then I'm done in 30 minutes and have done a good presentation. But I am going to talk about Wikibase, about the federation of the Wikibase, especially wikibase.cloud. At least I thought that. But then yesterday we had this keynote, and I said, okay, what can I really contribute to this? Like Tom already said, everything which I wanted to highlight, I can go into like a detail more here and there, but really I have nothing to add except please rewatch that keynote. I think there's a lot to talk about, and Tom and I talked about it yesterday for, I don't know, 3 hours or something. So there's a lot to talk, there's a lot to learn, and also I will highlight something in a second, but especially this talk will now no longer be on the Wikibase ecosystem. So if you were expecting that, I'm sorry, but please watch Tom's keynote. But I wanted to take this time, which we now have between lunch, to basically give a little bit of a review and to try to give something back. Because if you may have seen, I started all of this with a puzzle, and now is finally the time to learn to reapply what I learned in 3rd grade. Every good story is a 3-step arc. You have a beginning, you have a high point, and you have an end. I had this slide up on 3 different talks over this conference on 3 different days. So we are now at the send-off, and it is now time to quote-unquote solve this puzzle. So again, what is probably not the best solution for the problem, constantly under new pressure, barely keeping up as it is. Always a work in progress, yet I'm very glad to have it. I will first share how I got up with this slide. I basically reverse engineered it because I thought, how do I introduce myself being the general chair on this thing? And then I wrote some relatively derogative things about myself, but was like, but I'm glad to be here. And then I rephrased that entire statement as a question, so not to say things about me, but to keep the question up in the air. And I think that's the most important thing about this. Because this, what we have here, like everything you had in your talks, everything we have in this conference, this very talk here right now, all of those are the correct answers to those riddles. It's not about finding the one that is universal, it's about the one that is applicable to you. And I'm very glad to have one other solution, because I actually have a solution now. Like somebody went up, and I can highlight him, or maybe he wants to raise his hand. I will not shout it out. Okay, perfect. Yes, so today you walked up to me and said, here, this is the fixed solution. So I had a broken mouse when I began this conference, and it's now repaired. So if you need a better demonstration, we can fix things. Like, we can progress. The same way, I want to highlight every talk, but we don't have time to go through every talk. So I want to just highlight from the very beginning over to our keynotes, which are still very impressive. Yesterday evening, I clicked through and made those screenshots. And then I caught myself like listening to the keynote again for 20 minutes, and I was like, oh, no, I'm supposed to make slides, okay? So highly recommend to go back through this. Again, this would be an opportunity for me to plug my own project, saying there's a lot of knowledge in videos, but let's not go down to that road. And now is the time where I can shout out again a person who did a shout out. So I mentioned it at Tom's talk and also at the Bucket talk. Ward Cunningham is listening on this presentation all the time, so he has been with us in the chat the last 3 days. And he specifically, not only when the conference began, but even 2 individual talks, wrote in the chat different messages. Yes, you are seen, your work is seen, you are appreciated, everything you do here. Yes, everything we are building on is being reused. Okay. Same way the other way around, we are moving this further, Echolot and other projects, like this is a living ecosystem, this is moving forward. We have, thanks to Sören this whole conference here, but also thanks to Bernard, who keeps making all of this possible, and all the different people who are involved in all those different talks or setups, and this is also the reason why I was running up just before I had this talk. I've got no idea where Jeffrey is. But basically everything we have here is a beautiful community of people who are contributing, and that's actually the thing which I want to highlight, and that's the time where I want to, what I want to use my talk for, and which is to ask Jeffrey, Losana, and Bernard to come to the front. And the thing is, I had I'll gladly hand this over to you. Bernard, I cannot list everything, like I truly cannot list everything, because that's what knowledge management is for, and I don't have it in my brain. I don't know everything you did. I don't know the list is very long. AV setup, organizing this conference, writing 200, many different mails, making calls, making signatures, having your head in the news for many things. So thank you very much. Yes. Yes, the thing why you have two presents, I always needed help, so I got two different people to help me for getting presents, so that nobody in the group knew all the presents that would be there.
Thanks, Tim.
Lozana, same to you. You organized so much, you had the program in your hands all the time. Whenever there were to-do lists, you were making sure that we were actually getting them done, that no point got forgotten, that everything was done in time when it needed to be, and you were always there to help us course correct when we were like drifting off or slacking or not at pace. So thank you very much. Again, with nobody on this list could be left out and it would still have been happening, so thank you very much.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you so much.
You weren't here to hear the first part, but yes, I have never seen a local chair who is not local, who is that active as a local chair. And we even went through 3 different hoops to get Jeffrey on the local chair, because he was like, no, I can do all of this. You don't need to accredit me. It will look weird if something extern is the local chair. So I even got somebody out of the underworks of the TIB to be like, okay, your name will also be there, but just so that Jeffrey can be also there. Like, the name is mainly there to highlight what Jeffrey is contributing. And that is why I want to highlight you 3, each individually, with a round of applause. So, please. But we have more. And I do think of those people which are still on my list, I only have one person in this room right now, because as mentioned, our second local chair, Katrin, is currently not here, I think, but I will make sure to get this to her. But another person, which is, where are you? Florian, get up here. Florian is the right hand of the program chair, and he is the only person who got things immediately off my mind, because whenever I was looking at the door and was like, okay, I need to make sure that everything is secure, that nobody walks, I looked at there and it was like, Florian was like, I have this, I got the door. And he is like probably the person whose name appeared most in the volunteering list, and even when it didn't appear, he was there to fill out the slots and to always take up anything which I had at immediate tasks. So thank you very much, Florian. Then there's one other name which I want to shout out, Erik Jan. I think we have somebody who lives like a few 10, 20, 100 kilometers away from him, so maybe they can carry this later with them to their place. But I have another one which I can give out to the person, which is our keynote speakers. So Sahar is not here, I already said I will bring it to her, but Tom, I can give this to you. Except for this. You're not getting that. Yes. Yeah. Yes, so this is not going to you, but this is yours. The same for Sahar. I will also get this to her, maybe later today, maybe tomorrow. I learned there's a holiday tomorrow, so apparently I shouldn't be working tomorrow. I will try to keep that in mind. And the other ones are Maria Esther, who had this opening speech, and Sören Auer, who also, as I mentioned, is one of the main people why we have all of this here. Like, he was on the phone last year I think I even remember the call where it was in the messages. I think it was messages where it was like, Sören, can we do this? Like, we really need this. And he was like, yeah, sure, I organize this. And then he got Katrin involved, and everything was cleared up in, I think, not even a day or something. So very much thank you to Sören, and this is the send-up applause to Erik Jan, Katrin, Florian, Tom, Sahar, Maria Esther, and Dören. Thank you.
But last but not least, we also have to thank our general chair. I have some Mannerschnitten already left. So thank you very much for organizing this. Thank you to TIB. They saved the conference, really. And for upcoming conferences, the one interesting question was in the beginning when we organized this, how much involvement do we need? And the answer is, it's up to you. What is really great is having a location where we can meet, because it's a very big cost factor. And there is one option: you can have the location, but you have to do everything on your own. So that's fine. A location is a great thing. But TB has been very involved with doing the program chair and the general chair. This is really great, but it's not a necessity. So don't be shy. If you can organize a free location that we can use, everything else we might be able to pull off from our community.
Are you done, Bernhard? Sorry. Okay. I just, Tom reminded us very timely that we have the presence also for the general chair, and I also really want to thank Tim and Bernhard and basically everyone from the Semantic MediaWiki community going to the future into MUDCon. I got involved with this whole community really only last year, to be honest, and it was super inspiring being in Vienna for a very short amount of time, and I was super happy when then Tim said, let's do it here, and do you want to be involved? And I thought, okay, it's going to be difficult. I don't know anyone, but I will try my best. So thanks everyone for making it happen. It was super fun. Do we need to say anything else? Because I have one more announcement to make before lunch. Or
then feel free to do it now.
Okay, I've two more thoughts. One thought is, I heard, maybe you want to correct me, that the next conference is probably going to be in Salt Lake City in the spring in the US. Is it definite? But there's no date yet, probably.
There is.
Oh.
It's on MediaWiki.org.
Oh, it's already, okay. So we already have a next conference. That's great. So I hope to see many of you in Salt Lake City. I don't know if I can make it, but I will be certainly there online. Another thing, I had this idea just in the coffee break. I might have just invented a new format, and the format I would call a lightning thought. So over our lunch break, I have a lightning thought, and I would like to discuss with you, why can we not in MediaWiki edit uploaded files, like an uploaded Word file or Excel file? Why is this not there? It should be easy with integrating to Nextcloud. So this is my lightning thought for lunch. Please talk to me about this. It's just an idea. Yeah, that's the lightning thought, and thank you. This is it from me.
Okay, Jeffrey, I will make the last one announcement, but if you want to add something.
The MediaWiki stakeholders group would just like to thank everybody for coming. We had an amazing time organizing with TIB. I mean, they have taken this super seriously, and this conference would not be anywhere as successful or full-featured as without them. So it was an absolute pleasure working with you. I hope to work with them again in the future, and we at the MediaWiki stakeholders group would love to just continue supporting and facilitating these conferences. So yeah, we hope to see everyone between March 25th and 27th of next year in Salt Lake City.
Excellent, sounds exciting. Okay, final announcements, and we can go and have lunch for an hour. For the social activities in the afternoon, there are 2 tours, they're going ahead. If you are coming to the architecture tour, just follow me, and this will be a 15-minute walk from here to the venue. The sun is shining, so it should be fine, but do take into account that we'll have to leave here at absolute latest 15 minutes before 2. And for the TIB tour, I would like to get one volunteer who is going to that tour so I can give instructions and you will lead everyone else. So is anyone going to the TIB collections tour who would like to volunteer as a leader of the group?
If we lock this up here, I can do it.
Mhm.
So if everybody's out by 2, no.
Quarter to 2.
Quarter to 2,
Yeah.
then I can do it. Yes.
Can we leave our luggage here?
Yes.
Okay, great. So then Tim will be your guide for the TAB tour. I will be your guide for the architecture tour. We're going to leave sharp 15 minutes before 2. Excellent. Enjoy lunch.
At what point do I mention that I still have It's fine. It's a perfect. It's better. Yes. Yeah. No, it's fine.